What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin price chart, along with the altcoin market, including the XRP price chart, as we get ready to kick off a new week with the Russell 2000 knocking on that 786 Fibonacci retracement level. And as we have our big week ahead, where on Wednesday, we'll have the FOMC meeting. Jerome Powell will come marching out and give future guidance for the federal funds rate, which is currently anticipated to remain paused at the meeting on Wednesday, July 31st. However, the market has priced in a 100% probability that we will see at least a 25 basis point rate cut come September 18th. Will this give us the juice to be able to see mid caps and small caps expand, taking XRP with it, while seeing the altcoins take off right on time as they did back in 2021 when the Bitcoin dominance went down into its fall? That's the $1 million question this week as we get ready for Wednesday to approach. So all eyes will be over here on the Russell 2000 to see that it does get into expansion, or at least the first step, getting through its 786 Fibonacci retracement level as we prepare for a likely volatile week ahead. Now, if you caught last week's 39-minute video, we talked a lot about this range going on here with Bitcoin. We've taken a look at the consolidation range of United Health, the identical match that Bitcoin has in there, how it's gone into a potential upthrust after distribution. What would that mean in the event that Bitcoin does something like that? Would it mean that we have 60 days left? That's what the theory kind of suggested. We incorporated things like this, taking a look over here at the dominance of the market, and then seeing, based on previous price action that we've seen in the cryptocurrency market, is it reasonable for something to be able to happen in that short of an amount of time, which we have seen. That you can see entire falls happen like this, like we saw in 2017 and in 2021, and that the entire excitement of a market can take place in really just like 45 days. That was really the whole alt season of 2021, was really this 45-day window. But as we sit here waiting to see what does happen in regards to expansion or a breakthrough retracements over here for the Russell, we of course are still left with that same discussion over here with Bitcoin, still in the long range that it's been in for 4.5 months. Everyone debating, is this a distribution range? Is this just the continuation of previous cycles, which it did all the way up until this point, really identically matching it for over 1.5 years? Now awaiting if our big moment is coming in here for something like that to happen. Now, the fascinating thing about this is, regardless of what happens with Bitcoin, a lot of these things would still remain true in here in the discussion from last week. Whether Bitcoin is just in distribution and if it's going to run sideways here until September, or if we're going to see some epic move in here happen for Bitcoin where it just totally blasts out of here, the end result of both of those still ends up being the same in regards to the altcoin market. The more challenging part for the market would be if we do get something more along the lines like that. A lot of us would be looking for things like we've seen at tops to give those signals that this would be the end of the Bitcoin rally, or at least the end of the altcoin market rally, which in 2021 and there in 2017 and 18, we saw these retracements come in here for Bitcoin. And both times that was the tipping point for the altcoin market into that retracement right in there. However, in the event, if that did play out, we actually saw the behavior different here. And I know that because that's the period where I entered into the market in 2017, that there wasn't actually some big simple moment that came out that was like, all right, there's your retracement for Bitcoin, there's your exit on the altcoins. It wasn't clean like that because this was actually just part of the cycle. Essentially, this was alt season 1. And then as we moved along and as Bitcoin got closer to that $20,000 in that retrace, right, then there was alt season number 2 that ended up happening. But in the end, the alts really kind of finished here. Bitcoin did a lot of waddling. It went into multiple corrections, and then it got up near its peak and up in here. This is really where all the altcoin action happened again. So you had alt season 1, alt season 2, and then really the show was all Bitcoin from like June or July all the way up until December of 2017. And nothing really happened for the altcoins here in this middle part. But the big discussion on whether Bitcoin's in distribution that's going to last for another 50 or 60 days, or even if that scenario plays out where Bitcoin goes into some type of breakout, it still seems like the end result would still end up being this for the altcoin market. And for example, when Bitcoin went into its expansion back in 2017, when this moment all occurred, you could see that happening over here in the dominance, that this is that moment right in here that we're discussing that inevitably led to the beginning of the fall of the dominance once Bitcoin went into expansion and once Bitcoin really just got through its previous all-time high. In the end, of course, this is the best outcome for the market. This is where the biggest flood of liquidity would come from, and this scenario would end up being ideal. And another easy way to visualize that is by looking over here at CoinTrader Pro, that once that escape happens there for Bitcoin, off and away goes the dominance of the market. Notice that Bitcoin doesn't do some 702 retracement that ends up pausing, but you can see it goes into a correction, and then Bitcoin goes into a big bull run in here, and it takes the dominance along with it until the peaks start coming in, and then we start running with alt season number 2. So the reason we talk about it in that manner is that, hey, if this ends up being the case and the dominance starts collapsing on itself all over again, well, when we've seen this scenario play out before, it did not result in something as easy as what happened over in here, where you just get a nice little 702 retracement and that's your easy exit. But theoretically, in the event that Bitcoin does that, or if Bitcoin's in distribution, the end result still ends up being that. The thing is, if Bitcoin does go into that breakout, we probably get a much bigger, broader rally and more capital flowing into the market on that type of move with a bigger break in Bitcoin because there's just more money flooding into the market. So that, of course, is still the ideal scenario. But why do we talk about both of these things? Well, one, in the event that either one of them happens, try not to get completely blindsided by it occurring. But it also comes with that thought process of what I'm always trying to do. I'm trying to think 2 steps ahead so that I don't get surprised when things do happen. There's always going to be surprises in the market, but some of them you can kind of try to calculate. If Bitcoin's in distribution, it becomes pretty clear that at the end of this rally, it's just kind of like, for me, get out, get as much cash as possible, and then just kind of sit back and let things kind of do what they're going to do. But if Bitcoin pulls one of these kind of numbers right in here, does that end up being the same story that would be happening right in here of getting into cash and taking a step back? Maybe not. It might be more about consolidating the altcoin portfolio and being much more heavy Bitcoin in that scenario. But I think what's interesting about both of these, regardless of how it ends up playing out, both of them really tell the story of Bitcoin isn't the story here. If Bitcoin is in distribution, it's not the story. That's the end of the road. And if Bitcoin is going into expansion, Bitcoin also isn't the story in here. That this run and this expansion is actually the best case scenario for the altcoin market. And historical precedent of what has happened in the cryptocurrency market, that is the largest alt season we have ever seen since the invention of crypto. Was that moment, which was right here. There has never been a moment of expansionary times, breadth, and giant movements throughout the entire crypto market than there was during that move back in 2017. Even for reference in here, for XRP, that's where it does the 7,000% rise. From then on, in that second alt season of 2017 and 2018, the next one, is only 665% above that. Even from the lows in here of where it really starts to take off, it's still 1,500 compared to that. That was your big boy that happened right there during that expansionary breadth opening up there for Bitcoin. That story was also true for Ethereum. That's all right through here. Ethereum's rise in here was 6,000%. Story's the same. And then from that peak on in alt season 2, it just wasn't anything close to what happened during that first one. No matter really kind of where we take these moments from, that was the big one. So even in the event of that, the story isn't Bitcoin in here. The story is the altcoins. Do I cheer for that? 100%. I cheer for that. But I have to kind of be prepared for either one. And still, it's whether we're in some type of distribution for the next 60 days or so, which is less now, or even in the event of that. But the only reason we talk about it in this manner is being like, well, what happens next? Then what, right? Like if Bitcoin is only in distribution, then it becomes this big get into cash, get out, run type scenario, right? But if it's something like this, is it really the same story? And if we saw something like that, the move to make after that was 1, yes, build a cash position, but 2, also really cut down the altcoins tremendously and then tighten it up into Bitcoin. Because as you can see from this moment here for Bitcoin, a correction came I've told many stories about that correction. It was really kind of the first bigger correction for Bitcoin that I had been in once I entered the market. But that was the end of the alt season. And then XRP even ran flat this whole time. We've told this story too, that you could see that XRP doesn't really take off till right here, but Bitcoin had already run from about $3,000 all the way up to almost $17,000 while XRP was still down 50%. Even Ethereum didn't do a whole lot during that time period until that happened as well. And the story was Bitcoin the rest of the way until Bitcoin reached its top. So if something like that emerged, it would be kind of the thought process of, well, is it really time to fully exit the market? Or is it time to tighten everything up in the altcoins and consolidate it down into Bitcoin? None of this changes the view that the dominance falls, altcoins have a shining moment. The big question is what happens at the end of that, whether it's the runaway moment or whether it's the tighten up into Bitcoin moment afterwards. And that's still the question that's going to have to be answered later. But right now, for me personally, it's the high risk, high reward play right now. Very, very minimally allocated to Bitcoin for me. Even if that is the circumstance, history suggests we would need to be going into expansion over here in the Russell. And if we're going into expansion in the Russell, and if we're going into expansion in Bitcoin, the play was the altcoin market the whole time. While it doesn't make really good headlines for Bitcoin-centered content to say that, every single Bitcoin bull should be having that view right now. It just does a lot better clicks. It does a lot better engagement to point to Bitcoin. But the cold, hard truth is that these were all the conditions for the giant run for the altcoin market. It's where we've seen the biggest one in history. It happened in a moment like that. Bitcoin expanding, Russell expanding, following this whole corrective structure. It was right there. That was the play. So for me, I am only allocated a little over 8% to Bitcoin. I'm about 92% in the altcoin market. And as we move forward into the future months, it'll be about determining whether or not it becomes only going into cash or going to cash and Bitcoin. But our biggest determining factor on whether or not we're even going to get any of that is going to be if we can see this Russell escape, which again, this morning, now knocking on the 786 again, just as we did 2 weeks ago. So get ready for the big week. It's not anticipated that the Fed is going to do anything at this meeting in regards to changing the Fed funds rates or QE or any type of turning on the money printers, but everyone will be listening to the messaging that Jerome Powell does make in regards to the next meeting coming up in about 50 days, where the market has priced a 100% probability on rate cuts. We will live stream it. We'll see if we get the break during that moment. We'll see if that's our moment for XRP and the altcoins to go. And what we'll pay attention to is whether this is a big distribution rally or an expansionary rally, and whether or not this is the end of the 60 days or if there's still more life to be breathed into Bitcoin in the coming months after that. But if there has ever been a moment or a setup for an explosive rally to happen in the altcoin market, this is as good of a time as any. We're right on the brink of the area where we need to see things happen. And if they do, there's confluence, 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 and confluence. And heck, even like we talked about last week, confluence. So buckle up. It's sure to be a bumpy ride this week, but hopefully it ends in glory and it kickstarts the moment we all come here for. We'll pay very close attention to continue to see signs for distribution or signs for expansion when it comes to Bitcoin. But either way, even if Bitcoin goes into expansion, like I've shown, this is still the moment for the altcoins. It was the most historic rally in history. Nothing has ever come close to it ever again. And we have the setups that would be very similar in the event that it does actually expand. So we'll continue to watch it as the days tick by. But as for this week, all eyes set on the Russell 2000, waiting to see if it can give us the green light. If it does, we'll likely see breadth open in a way that we haven't seen in a very long time. But right now, it's kind of about sitting back, twiddling our thumbs and seeing how is the market going to respond to this and the wording that comes out on Wednesday. Does this trigger the retail excitement, the money printer memes of Jerome Powell? Things are typically very volatile on Fed week, but we'll be here for every moment of it through the week. And of course, we'll be here on Wednesday morning for Markets in the Morning and for the live stream of the actual FOMC decision in Jerome Powell's press conference. So we'll see if that theory holds true, if that's our catalyst moment. But till then, we just sit there and watch the clock tick down for the next 2 days. So One thing that's very interesting, of course, is that we've talked about with XRP kind of needing that Russell. And that's one of those things we've still witnessed to this point, right? It still sits in those 60s. It hasn't broken out yet. It's still just kind of waiting for that moment. It's waiting for that signal. So here we go. Big week. But all right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like, check out the newsletter over here on blockchainbacker.substack.com. Over 40 newsletters here. I voice audio record all of them. Great to listen as a podcast or just to follow along. You can, of course, check out my website, bcbacker.com, if videos are more of your thing. So over 40 videos here with over 11 hours of content, deep diving into the historical behavior of the cryptocurrency market and teaching you how to set up your own charts within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. There are links within the description of this video to both bcbacker.com and to the newsletter over there at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Otherwise, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Here's to a great, huge week. And I'll be here with you for whatever kind of ride we got. But all right, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.